Welcome to Godcast with Wanda. Today we're going to be continuing on our study with Daniel 11. We're moving right along. We don't have but 2 chapters left, 11 and 12, and then we'll be done with Daniel. Today's lesson is going to be a kind of a tough lesson. It's a lot of war. We're not going to go through the whole. I'm just going to point out the highlights here because if not, you're going to get terribly confused. You can read it and even knowledgeable people can read it and still get confused. So we're just going to pick out the highlights today and explain to you what you need to know that's so important here. Now, the beginning of the war from the north and south, it lasts about 375 years. And about 130 years of those, the Roman empires, they're fighting the Roman Empire also. So a lot of war here, a lot of stuff happening here. Now, when Alexander the Great died, he left 4 generals. Those 4 generals divided up the land, and the 2 generals we're concerned about today are going to be Seleucus, who is the kingdom of the north, we read about in Daniel 11, and Ptolemy, who is the southern part, which is Egypt. Now, you've got Syria in the north, and you've got Egypt in the bottom. Who's in the middle? Israel is stuck in the middle of these 2. They're warring against each other, and Israel is caught in the middle of this. They haven't attacked Israel yet. They're kind of this back and forth. Let's start with Daniel 11:21 through 24. And in his place shall arise a vile person. Now this is Antiochus Epiphanes, who comes out of the Greek Empire. He is one of the generals, and he is from the Seleucid Empire. He is the king of the north. So Antiochus Epiphanes, and he named himself Epiphanes, meaning he is illustrious. So he named that for himself. But anyway, he is going to have the characteristics of the antichrist. It says, to whom they will not give the honor of royalty because he killed his half-brother and took over the throne. But he shall come in peaceably and seize the kingdom by intrigue. So there you go. With the force of a flood, they shall be swept away before him and he be broken, and also the prince of the covenant. Now the prince of the covenant is mentioned in Daniel 9:27. This is the prince who is to come, who will make a covenant with Israel for 7 years. And after the league, or after the peace agreement is made with him, he shall act deceitfully. He shall come up and become strong with a small number of people. He's going to be coming up with the power of Satan. This is mentioned in Revelation 13. We're in verse 24. He shall enter peaceably, even into the richest places of the province, and he shall do what his fathers have not done, nor his forefathers. He shall disperse among them the plunder, spoil, riches, and he shall devise his plans against strongholds, but only for a time, only until God allows him. God is allowing him to have control. This is called the tribulation, the 7-year period that is spoken of in Daniel 9:8 and 9, that the Jews have to suffer through to come back to him, to come back to a knowledge of the God of their fathers, Jesus, through Jesus. Daniel 9:27 says, then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, but in the middle of the week he shall bring an end to sacrifice and suffering. Now, Antiochus Epiphanes killed over 80,000 Jews at this time. He imprisoned over 40,000 Jews, and he also sold off 40,000. And it says that he stole, in today's value of money, over $1 billion worth of gold, silver, and treasures. So he plundered Israel. He plundered Jerusalem. He plundered the temple to get everything he could. Daniel 11:28 through 33, it says, while returning to his land with great riches, his heart shall be moved against the holy covenant. This is the holy covenant that he signed with Israel for 7 years, remember? And that's going to happen at the halfway mark, 3.5 years. So he shall do damage and return to his own land, Syria. And at the appointed time he shall return and go toward the south. Remember, that's Egypt. But it should not be like the former or the latter times or the latter wars. For the ships from Cyprus, which is the Roman Empire, is going to assist Egypt at this time. Therefore he shall be grieved and return enraged against the holy covenant and do damage. And this is going to be the 3.5 year mark when he is going to be enraged and take all his anger out that he has against Egypt and the Roman Empire and everything done wrong to him. And this is when the power of Satan is going to enter him. Revelation 13 tells us this is when the power of Satan will enter the Antichrist at the 3.5-year mark. He shall return and shall regard for those who forsake the holy covenant. Now, there are going to be people, Jews, they're going to be Jews, that will turn to the Antichrist. They will join him in order to live. Because Revelation 13 tells us you're going to either bow down and worship him or you're going to be killed. And there will be people who will turn to the Antichrist in order to save their lives. Verse 31, it says, and forces shall be mustered by him, and they shall defile the sanctuary fortress. They sacrificed a pig on the altar of God. Now, a pig is an unclean animal to the Jews. They don't eat anything. They don't touch anything unclean. And they slaughtered it in the temple, which means they won't even enter the temple now until it's been cleansed. And they're not going to be allowed to cleanse the temple because now the Antichrist has control of it. Then they shall take away the daily sacrifice and place there the abomination of desolation. Now, the abomination of desolation is also mentioned in Matthew 24. Now, this is when Jesus gives the Olivet Discourse. He's talking about the future times, and we're going to talk about that in another lesson, but I want to point this out to you. Jesus even mentions the abomination of desolation, and here it is. Matthew 24, 15 and 16. It says, so when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. So even Jesus talks about the abomination of desolation. Only 2 places in the Bible this is mentioned, and that's in Daniel and in Matthew 24, where Jesus is given the Olivet Discourse. Now, 2 Thessalonians 2, 3 and 4 also says, let no one be deceived by any means, for that day is the end times, will not come unless the falling away comes first. And the falling away is the rapture. The rapture will happen first, and then the tribulation. And the man of sin is revealed. This is another name for the Antichrist. A man of sin is revealed, and the son of perdition. 2 more names for the Antichrist. He's called the son of perdition and the man of sin. So a lot of names for the Antichrist. There's 4 there in that first 2 Thessalonians 2. It says, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God and that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God, the Antichrist. So here's some characteristics of the Antichrist. This is what we're looking for towards the end. But as believers, we're going to be raptured out of here. We're not going to have to worry about this. This is a time for people who do not believe. God always gives warning before wrath, warning before judgment, warning before disaster. And we don't always see the signs right now. We're in a time in the world where it's a feel good. If you like it, do it. If you see it, you get it. It's just our values, our way of thinking has changed so drastically that we don't think like the Bible anymore. We don't come to God for first thing. We don't pray to him over everything. And this is what's going to happen to those who don't turn back to God. Verse 32 in Daniel 11. It says, those who do wickedly against the covenant, he shall corrupt with flattery, but the people who know their God shall be strong. So during this time of tribulation that the Antichrist is in control, there will be people who know the right thing to do, and they will do their best to help spread the gospel, to help each other out, help believers, help you come to know the Lord. It won't be too late. You might die, you might be beheaded, you might be killed, but you're going to have eternity in heaven with Jesus. Verse 33, and those of the people who understand shall instruct many left behind. There you go. Yet for many days they shall fall by the sword and flame, by captivity and plundering, meaning you're going to die if you don't. The Antichrist is going to control everything. He's going to control where you go, what you see, what you do, what you eat, what you buy, what you sell. He will control everything. You will have no way out except Jesus Christ. Verse 34, now when they fall, they shall be aided with a little help, but they shall join them by intrigue. And some of those of understanding shall fall, those who believe shall fall, to refine them, purify them, and make them white until the time of the end, because it is still for the appointed time. During the tribulation, if you are killed, and this is something here that's really should give you hope and assurance. Read that again. And some of those of understanding the knowledge of God, shall fall to refine them, purify them, and make them white. Revelation talks about in chapter 7 the people dressed in white, and people under the altar dressed in white, and the people that are coming out at the end of Revelation dressed in white. Those are the saints of Jesus, the saints of God. That's you and me. If you become a believer, or if you are a believer, there's hope. And we don't fear the future. We look forward to the future. There are signs right now. We're going to talk about the signs in a few weeks. We think it's going to be in the near future. The Bible tells us, gives us all of this. And God doesn't give us everything in one section. He doesn't give us Daniel and say, okay, this is about the Antichrist. This is when, where, how, what. You have to read this whole Bible to understand. I was asked a question the other day about where is the information on the Antichrist and when is he coming? Well, the whole Bible doesn't really say this is the Antichrist. You have to understand the Antichrist has different names. We just talked about two names here, the Prince of Sin and the Prince of Perdition. And he's called a lot of names, Lucifer and Satan and the Prince with a little p, the Prince of the Earth. You have to watch for these and look up the names of the Antichrist or the names of Satan, because the Bible's not going to give it all to you in one. You've got to study the Bible to find out and figure out little details here and there. And I'm trying to help you with that, but I can't give it all to you in 15 minutes. And in verse 36, it says, then the king shall do according to his own will. The Antichrist is going to do what he wants. He shall exalt and magnify himself above every god, shall speak blasphemies against the God of gods, shall prosper till the wrath, that's the tribulation, has been accomplished. For what has been determined shall be done. This is a decree from God. It will be done. 37 says, he shall regard neither the gods of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor any god, for he shall exalt himself above them all. Now, what does that mean? A lot of people believe he shall not regard the gods of his fathers, that somehow he's going to have Jewish ancestry. It's like Herod. He claimed to be Jewish. He called himself the king of the Jews when he was in power, because he was a descendant of Esau. Jacob and Esau were brothers. Jacob's descendants became Jews. Esau's descendants became Arabs. They are not Jews, okay? There's a difference there. Herod came from the line of Esau, the Edomians. Jesus comes from the line of the Jews. But Herod did claim to be the king of the Jews. He promised Rome, I'd keep them under control if you let me control them and let me have the power. And that's what happened. So Herod came into power by claiming he was a Jew. So the Antichrist might end up doing the same thing, even though he's not a descendant of Jacob. A little confusing there, but go back to my study on brother against brother, and it explains everything. Verse 38, but in their place he shall honor a god of fortresses. Now he's going to put the statue of Zeus in the temple. Antiochus Epiphanes is. He's going to put a statue of Zeus in the temple, but the Antichrist is not. The Antichrist is going to put a statue of himself, because he is the one who's going to be worshipped. Shall honor with gold and silver, precious gems, and pleasant things. So he's going to be very rich. He's going to do what he wants to, and he's going to worship the gold that he has, and he's going to worship himself. And others are going to worship him. I'll just do a quick review here that the Greek Empire has divided into 4 generals. 2 of those generals are Seleucid and Ptolemy. Seleucid is the king of the north. Ptolemy is the king of Egypt, Syria, Egypt. The Roman Empire comes in to help Egypt against king of Syria, who is Antiochus Epiphanes. Antiochus Epiphanes is a type of Antichrist. He has the characteristics of the Antichrist. He is going to worship himself. He's going to allow them to rebuild the temple, but they're not going to be worshiping God there. It will end up worshiping the antichrist. It's going to be a hard time. If you feel that tug in your heart that God is calling you, answer that call, because God is waiting for you. He's standing right there. He's waiting for you, and he will get you through the troubled times. And believers will be raptured before the tribulation, but if you're not raptured, you're going to be through the tribulation. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. It's going to be deadly. I pray that you would just share this gospel. Share this video. Let's share the gospel together.